This is our third episode of 6, honoring our time with pioneering sports psychologist Dr. Glen Albaugh, who passed away in early 2023. There are links to both his books, an article, and where to make a donation in Dr. Albaugh's memory in today's show notes. Now, this episode, titled Practice Like You Play for Better Results on the Course, is the first of a two-part conversation that was originally published as Golf Smarter number 420 on January 21, 2014. Enjoy.
Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insight and advice from the best instructors featured on the Golf Smarter podcast. Great golf instruction never gets old. Our interview library features hundreds of hours of game improvement conversations like this that are no longer available in any podcast app.
The next time you go to the range, why don't you do first shot practice? Okay, what's first shot practice? Change targets on every shot. I can use the same club. If you really have some skill, you can change the shape of the shot. You can change clubs on each shot, but you can't repeat anything. What you're going to find probably won't practice as well as when you hit 57 irons in a row, but it's going to correlate more significantly to what you do when you play on the course. Maybe the next time you practice, you take your wedge out and get some targets out there at 10-yard intervals, 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. And you'll practice hitting your wedges the correct distances.
With another interview from the archives of Golf Smarter, here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to Golf Smarter, Glenn.
It's good to be back, Fred.
Well, thank you. It's been a long time since we spoke, but each time it's been very meaningful for me because there are moments where my mental game gets a little bit wacky and I need a tune-up, and I'm so glad to have you back on the show.
Well, I'll offer that tune-up.
Thank you. The name of your book, to remind listeners who've been here a long time, and for those who've never been able to hear you before, it's called Winning the Battle Within. Why don't you give us a brief summary of the book?
Well, Winning the Battle Within is a lifetime work, and what it centers on, of course, is the way that we can finding a way towards self-coaching so that we can manage ourselves and our game so when we're out there playing, we have a set of skills that will allow us to continue playing for more enjoyment and lower scores. So the book is full of all kinds of anecdotes and stories, about how people have used these particular concepts in their own games. And it's full of drills and questionnaires and information that you can use for your own game. And it's for people across all skill levels and all ages. People that are able to read it are 12 and people that are 80. They're able to use this stuff. And in looking through it recently, because we're putting together an excerpt from the book, it'll never go out of style. It was first published in 2006 and then redone again in 2009. And the information will be golden for everybody in 2020.
And that's one of the things that I love about the mental game. And that's really what I try to do here on the podcast is present content what we call evergreen, which means that it's just as good in 2000 as it is in 2014 and 2020. It's just as valid.
I like that.
Yeah. And also, you say from 8 to 80, but it's not just for golfers. I know that you've worked with from athletes of different sports as well.
Oh, indeed. Worked with in past years. I've worked with athletes across many domains and teams as well. And I'm currently working with a couple teams at the University of Pacific. The men's basketball team and the men's tennis teams, and work with volleyball teams and athletes across many domains.
Right. And as we're recording this, it is the morning after the 2013 NFC Championship between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers, and you have ties to those teams as well.
Oh, yeah. Close ties, of course, with the 49ers of the 80s when Bill Walsh in his heyday. You know, I miss him every day.
Yeah, you were good friends with Bill Walsh, right?
And a wonderful coach. And so to have access to them during that time was an education indeed for me that I can use in all the work that I do. And then Pete Carroll, we've done many, many things together. And as I texted him this morning, it's been a long journey since the 70s, you know, when he was first exposed to golf in the kingdom and the inner game of tennis, is all of Timothy Galway's stuff. And all of a sudden here he is. Not all of a sudden. His journey has been an interesting journey. Through all of his coaching experiences, he's taken the inner game right to the top, and now they're headed to the Super Bowl. People ask me, who are you rooting for in this game? Well, I'm rooting for a great game. And yes, indeed, we did. I kind of leaned towards Pete, and people asked me why. I said, well, if you knew Pete Carroll, you'd probably root for them too. Anyway, it was quite an epic game with a fourth quarter that was full of all kinds of ebbs and flows.
Actually, I find that really interesting that, we're, as much as I was rooting for the 49ers, I have ties to Pete Carroll as well through USC, but also because I live here in Marin County, and Pete is from Marin County, went to high school in Marin County, and we here in Marin County are accused of being a little... Oh boy, what do I accuse myself of? Western thought, sometimes they were a little too out there for some people. Yeah, this is, Governor Moonbeam and stuff. But Pete Carroll has taken this inner game, and he has really got a very different coaching approach than any other NFL coach we've ever seen. He's happy, he's fun, the players love him. You think that a lot of his inner game, a lot of his teachings help that? Well,
there's probably more similarities between Pete and the other NFL coaches than we. There's many similarities.
Oh,
more
of course.
Similarities than are dissimilarities. His approach is quite interesting, and probably it's more similar to Bill Walsh, although they were different personalities.
Yeah.
His. Competition is everything, and if anybody has read his book, Win Forever, it's not about winning as much as it's about preparing to win, and competition is the essence of it. And I would say that going into the game yesterday, it was probably really, really exciting for him because there they were. This is the ultimate in competition with two teams and two coaches that are so absolutely incredibly prepared for this. And isn't that the essence of competition? It's probably not the winning of it. It's just the epic competition of the battle that certainly is a motivation for Pete. Yes, he has taken the inner game and put it into the NFL and the way he approaches it. And probably one of the concepts, and in fact, in my book, that he wrote about the importance of suspending judgment. And so what does that mean? It means, of course, that suspending judgment for ourselves, let's say, for instance, let's put it into a shot. So we hit a shot, and instead we hit a great shot. We ever connected all the dots. And we want to embrace that and anchor it and remember it. And it's easy to do because we remember the vision we see and the feel of the swing and the emotions attached to wow. And sometimes we miss shots. So Pete says, and we say in Winning the Battle Within, the most important thing you do there is suspend judgment. Describe the shot. So we describe the shot by saying, well, I hit that one high right, and I wasn't connected to the target. And so when I got the impact, because I wasn't connected to the target, I didn't really allow my club to release. Okay, on the next one, I'm going to stay connected to the target and release it. or to say, wow, I topped that one. I really was really rushed, and I was scared to death, that I was going to hit it in the water. Sure enough, I did. So when Pete talked about suspending judgment, he cuts across all of his coaching, and of course it's something important for us to learn as we play golf as well. That's just a couple of descriptions of how we use his suspending judgment, how he uses it in his coaching, and of course how we can use it as we self-coach ourselves in our own game of golf, being able to describe the shot, suspend judgment, so how quickly then we can refocus and ready for the next shot.
This all goes very well with a newsletter that you sent out for the new year to remind us about not just about winning the battle within the book, but you gave us some tools to work with as we approach the new year in our golf game and our mental game. And I would love to. I just was so moved by exactly the points that you had. It resonated so well with me that that's why I wanted to bring you back on the show and talk about this newsletter, because there's not a lot there, but there's so much depth to it that we can really break it down.
Okay.
And
going into the new, okay.
Well, the first point, you just have a number of points here, and I think the first one kind of dovetails right off of that football game, if anybody watched it, but it's commit to a strategy that fits your game. I would love to hear you explain that a little more.
Sure. Well, it's part of a pre-shot routine, and the most important thing is when you're getting ready to play and you have a shot, commit to a strategy that fits your game. So if you haven't hit the pins on the right-hand side and you haven't hit a cut shot in about a month, please don't try it today. So you're going to, then the best shot for me is hit the ball straight, right into the middle of the green, and I can totally commit to that. It's very difficult to commit to a shot when you really don't have the skill. So maybe you'll have to kind of bump it up there. But pick something that fits the situation and fits your game.
And what about those times? How do you put yourself in check when you're standing on the tee box of a par 3? You got to hit over the water. There's a green that moves away from you. You've played this hole hundreds of times before. You know that you've got to come up short, so the ball's just going to take a couple hops and land safely, softly in the middle of the green. But that flag in the back is tempting you to try to put the ball closer to the pin. And as you say, you got to, how do you hear yourself say, oh, I'm going to commit to this shot? Or maybe not. There's something in the back of your head. How do you listen to that? How do you not squash that voice that's going, you really shouldn't be going for this?
You're going to certainly have that inner conversation.
Yeah.
But you got to keep your ego in check and making sure that you hit the shot that, as I say again, it fits the situation. And sometimes that means, well, I'll just take a bogey here. But I know this, that you have a chance if you're totally committed to this strategy. You have no chance if you're not committed.
How do you quiet that voice?
Well, then, how do we quiet that voice? So the main thing is understand that you are having the conversation. And it begins with having awareness, so you can be in the present. Oh, here it comes again, well, shall I go for this? And you're going to have that conversation, but you have to come back to the fact that you're going to be totally committed to a strategy that really fits that situation. And so then that goes back to the way we practice. If indeed we're on the range and we're doing our practices, we're practicing developing the shots that we can totally commit to when we're playing. And so there's a correlation there, of course, between the way that we practice and what we decide to commit to when we're playing.
Mm-hmm. This is obviously much more than, I see this coming into play on approach shots, or after a bad tee shot when you're tucked in the woods and you're like, oh, I can get through those trees.
Wait, I have to interrupt you there. So if we're going to suspend judgment, then no such thing as good or bad shots.
Oh, thank you.
Because it doesn't tell us anything. So if I'm working,
there's bad lies though.
No, there's no such thing. It's just that I missed the shot. You see, describing that we missed the shot is not judging the shot. It's just evaluating the fact, well, I wasn't committed, so I topped the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I try to hit a cut there, and I really can't do that. Or, I rushed that one. God, I was thinking about I was down 1, 3, and 5, and I'm not sure I have enough money to even pay the debt at the end of the round. So when those inner conversations come that are interference, there's just really no chance. And so suspending judgment is really important. And it's not just a good shot. To say that I really connected it. So I'm playing the other day, and I had a 50-yard, and I had the distance locked in, and it was a little wedge shot. And I hit a lot of wedge shots these days because I don't reach many greens. And I just nailed it. Just right at impact, I said, wow, that is really something. And I really released that, and I was totally committed to it. See, it's not just a good shot. It's just what did I do to make sure that I executed. So it's really, really important to suspend judgment. It's, as a player, and a good teacher, Fred, is not going to say to you, that was a horrible shot. Well, of course, you already knew that. And when you turn to the teacher and say, how about telling me something I didn't know? Or the partner you're playing with you and said, wow, man, that was an awful shot. Well, I already knew that. I got to see it.
Yeah, shut up.
Tell me more about what happened then. Well, I wasn't committed, or, I rushed that one, or all the things that I've already stated. It's so important. It's one of the things that I really learned from Pete Carroll, the importance of suspending judgment. Okay, so Russell Wilson fumbles that on the 1-yard line. Yeah? And so what do you say to him when he comes off the field? You really screwed that out, Russell. No. You probably say to him, what's the next play?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next opportunity we have? But primarily, what's the next play? It's just so non-productive to judge anybody's behavior or anybody's actions. It just doesn't make any sense at all because it doesn't tell us anything, the information we need to have.
Well, that does make sense, but when you said you hit this wedge shot, and as soon as you hit it, you went, wow, and then it landed, and it's like, wow, that was a great shot, right?
Yeah, I did. I made the putt, too, by the way.
Oh, congratulations. I'm happy to hear that. But you didn't suspend judgment. Wait, you're only telling me to suspend judgment if it's a negative judgment.
No, it's just that it's so important for us to give ourselves the information. I was talking to a guy on the basketball team that was in kind of a shooting slump. And I said, it's just like a golfer. My goodness gracious, you learned how to shoot when you're 6 years old. Why are you trying all these different things on your technique? You know how to do it. What's the target? Let's get back on it, get in balance and shoot the thing. Look like a good golfer, not a bad one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it's so, anyway, back to suspending judgment again. It's just not productive at all. And I've already said that.
Well, and here your second point of suspend judgment. You say review, replace, refocus. Explain that to me.
Yeah, well, okay, so I missed a shot, and high right. Well, I went high right. Wow. I didn't release that one because I really wasn't connected to the target. Okay, I'm going to take a swing right here. And, boy, I'm going to let this one go. Okay, now I'm ready for the next shot. And, well, and I also, okay, so that's how I review, replace, refocus. Sometimes in there's some negative emotion that floods in. Emotion doesn't tell us it's coming. When frustration, we miss a shot, it just comes. And so we got to deal with that first. Okay, yeah, I hate to miss those, and I was really frustrated. Okay, let's get back in the present here. Okay, high right. Didn't release it. Okay, let's get going. All right, I get 5 steps here, or 5 seconds for me to get back into the present, and so I can get ready for the next shot. And so that's what our post-shot routine is. Pre-shot routine gets us ready, ready to hit the shot, selecting a strategy we can totally commit to. And a post-shot routine, it reviews, what happened. Wow, I nailed that wedge. Boy, did I release that when I was really on the target. Wow. I pulled that one way left. I was just petrified that I was going to miss the shot, and sure enough, I did. Okay, let's get back in the present here. Review it, replace it, refocus, be on our way.
Okay, now let's talk about the rest of us. Now, we're not talking about the players who are at the peak level of the sport, the NFL championship. We're not talking about tour players who occasionally will make a shot that maybe they weren't totally focused on and it didn't have the result they were hoping for. But the rest of the golfers who may do this, shot after shot, where they're having mishits, or I'm sorry, that's a judgment, that the result wasn't what they had hoped for. How do you quiet that? How do you quell that noise in your head that just all of a sudden now you have no confidence in what you're doing? Well, thank you for laughing at that.
It's let's see. Do you have a semester?
And which university am I signing up at?
It's a person. If a person makes a commitment to improve their self-coaching, one of the things that they have to develop this performance package, which is pre-shot, in-between shot, and post-shot routines. Okay, that's one thing. The next thing they have to understand the value of the awareness of being present-centered, and there's all kinds of ways we can practice that. All right, that's important. Another way we have to do it is the way we practice, and I think golfers, even at the highest level, violate these principles probably more than any other sport that I know. So we need to practice in a different way. There's 3 ways to practice, and one is hitting 57 irons, and so that's good if you're going to enter a 7-iron tournament, but I'm not sure when that is. And the other way to practice, if we're on a range, is to practice like you play. So how about next time you go, to listeners, next time you go to the range, why don't you do this? Why don't you do first shot practice? Okay, what's first shot practice? Well, they say I'm going to change targets on every shot. I can use the same club. If you really have some skill, you can change the shape of the shot. You can change clubs on each shot, but you can't repeat anything. What you're going to find during your practice, you probably won't practice as well as when you hit 57 irons in a row, but it's going to be more correlate more significantly to what you do when you play on the course. Maybe the next time you practice, you take the wedge out, and you'll get some targets out there at 10-yard intervals, 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. And you'll practice hitting your wedges, the correct distances. See if you can calibrate that distance. Another way to practice could be, you got a half hour before you start play. I can play the course on the range. Familiar, play the first 3 holes. Hit a drive. Since you're familiar with the course, you know what your second shot will be. Well, I'm in the trees. I have to hit a low in here. Miss the green, I have to chip it. I get on the green, I go to the next hole. But everything is first shot practice. We need to do more of that when we're on the range. Instead of just what we call block practice, hitting one ball after another. Now, sometimes that can be valuable if we're learning a new technique, but we overdo it. So anyway, one of the ways that we can manage ourselves on the course is the way we practice in preparation for the time we get on on the course.
So I'm one of those people, and I'm not going to speak for a lot of listeners because I know so many are committed to the game so much as I am, but I'm not committed to spending a lot of time on the range because of time constraints, because of so much else going on in life. So
Sure.
I need to make sure that I'm comfortable with my swing, be prepared for any results after I stroke the ball. And so I've always really tried to make sure that my mental game was at its best. So I don't practice a lot. When I'm at the range, it's probably because I'm preparing for a round.
Well, look, most of the people who are listening might have, maybe I can practice 1 hour, maybe 2 hours a week, maximum. And so let's use that time as best we can. It's all encompassing. So let's say that you have a golf professional you work with. Let's pick one that can help you learn how to play, help you with your swing, but more importantly, to help you learn how to play the game and help you. And there are some that are enlightened that can possibly do that. But if you can only devote, an hour or two to practice, I would really recommend that at least 50% of that should be first shot practice. Putting green, putt with one ball, practice making putts, chipping, put some balls around the green, chip one at a time, also first shot chipping. And then the other 50% of the time you can, use to try to perfect your technique. And that would be called block practice, where you're working on something in your swing. But if you're going to, when you're out there, if you're going to be totally engaged to targets and really trust your swing, you have to do some practice that correlates with that. And that's what we call first shot practice.
I like the concept of first shot practice because I think frequently we'll walk away from the practice area and we'll hit 25 shots with one club and maybe have 4 shots that we're happy with or 5 shots that we're happy with and walk away feeling like that went well. But in fact, if you kept score of how it went, you may not be as happy with that. So this first shot practice idea of just practicing with one ball, with one shot at a time, that's how I think that's a really great tip on how to take your practice game to the course.
Yeah, it's one of the ways you could practice. There's another way. We have the block practice, is working on technique. We have first shot practice, is what we call simulated or practicing like we play. And then there's another practice which feature, in winning the battle within, we call inner game practice or trust practice. And it's really a lot of fun. And a couple of those drills would be next time you practice, Fred, let's say you take out your 8-iron and you pick out a target and visualize the shot. You'd be able to, some people can see the whole flight of the ball, some people see part of it, but you can certainly see the target. Let's see if you can retain the image of the target while you're swinging. It's masterful in the way it can help you trust in the swing you have. Okay, that's one of them. Another in-game drill is take the same 8-iron, and let's see if you can. Let's say that you hit an 8-iron 130 yards. What I'd like you to do is take the 8-iron and take a full swing and see if you can hit it 90 yards and keep it on line. And the benefit of that drill is what? Much more direction focus, and it also distance focus, and be able to maintain more distance control. And it's a lot of fun to do it. Another one that's really a lot of fun, I was doing it with a young player I started with yesterday, we call it let it go drill. And you tee up 5 balls, and you hit them one right after another, and you just smack them. And you don't have time to think about anything. So that's another kind of a drill to help you just trust the swings you have. And it's a lot of fun, too. You can do it with any club. So then we have 3 ways to practice. One, you can work on your technique. One is a first shot practice. And then we call inner game practice, just learning to trust the swings you have. And thus 3 explanations of the way you can practice to help improve your game so that you can have more fun when you're on the course, be better at self-coaching, and shoot lower scores. How's that?
I like it. I think that, the inner game practice is something that you can take off the course and off the practice area as well, though.
Oh, you can. Yes, you can. It's, our imagination is really rich. That part of our brain that works 1,000 times faster than the thinking brain. It's like next time you walk downstairs, think about how you're walking, and you'll probably stumble, but you don't think about it because you just walk down the stairs. And, of course, that's what we'd like to play golf the same way. That part of the brain is just rich with imagination and intuition and creativity. And the way we get there, of course, is by seeing targets, feeling swings, and because the game is a non-thinking game, it's not an intellectual activity at all. It's
now you tell me.
Yeah, right.
All right, Glenn. Well, listen. We've only covered half of the list of your New Year greeting, and I'm wondering, would you mind sticking around? Can we do part 2 and conclude the conversation?
Sure.
Oh, thank you very much. Here's an opportunity to improve your game for 2014 by improving your mental game. And this is a topic that I hope to be covering a lot this year. I think this is so important for everybody to get more comfortable with the concept of improving your mental game. And some of the things I want to cover, Glenn, are going to be, visualization and getting deeper into that, and also pre-shot and post-shot routines. The value of those and how we can take advantage of each one. And Glenn, thank you again for your time.
Well, I was delighted. It's always, obviously, I'm always looking forward to the opportunity to talk about these concepts that I embrace.